When my wife's ex-fiancé walked into our housewarming carrying 2 bottles of wine in an architect's tube, I thought he was being polite. Then he unrolled blueprints across my dining table, site plans for something called Mercer Meadows Senior Village, and I realized he'd already subdivided my family's 160 acres into 47 lots. The barn I'd repaired last spring was marked demolish. The oak tree my late wife planted showed as a parking island. Todd's manicured finger traced property lines I'd walked for 40 years, and when I looked at Diane, my wife of 14 months, her face showed no surprise. Just a tight smile, while 40 guests went quiet in my living room. The propane heater clicked on in the corner. Someone coughed. I could smell diesel exhaust from the neighbor's truck idling outside, mixing with the scent of apple pie going cold on the counter. I served pie, smiled, played the gracious host. 3 days later, I found her alone in my file cabinet. The morning after the party, I was out fixing the south gate when Diane came down from the house. Frost still clung to the fence wire, burning my bare fingers where I gripped the post. The gate had been sticking since November, metal contracting in the cold, and I'd finally gotten around to it. "You handled last night well," she said, hands in her coat pockets, breath coming out in clouds. I tightened the hinge bolt. Didn't seem like there was much to handle. Todd gets excited about projects. You know how developers are. She watched me work for a moment. He just wanted to share some ideas, nothing serious. The bolt stripped slightly under my wrench. I backed it off, started again. He had the property already named. "It's just a concept, a what if." Her voice had that reasonable tone she used when explaining bank loans to nervous farmers. "You're not upset, are you?" I tested the gate. It swung clean. "No." "Good." She stepped closer, touched my arm. "Because I was thinking, since we're settling in here, making this our home together, maybe I should see the property deed, just so I understand what we have, for planning purposes." The cedar windbreak whistled. Somewhere down the road, a cattle truck downshifted. "Sure," I said. "It's in the file cabinet. Office." She smiled, kissed my cheek, went back inside. I stayed out there another 20 minutes, checking fence staples that didn't need checking. That Saturday, I came in from checking the water tank to find her in my office. The file cabinet drawer hung open. She had her phone out, angled over papers spread across the desk. "Hey," I said from the doorway. She looked up fast. "Phone down." "You scared me." "Sorry. What are you doing?" "Just organizing." She straightened the papers, not quite meeting my eyes. "Your system is—" "There's no system. I thought I'd make some sense of it. For tax season." The papers were property documents, survey maps, the original deed from when my late wife's grandfather bought the place in 1947, transfer documents from when Sarah, my first wife, inherited it, the life estate paperwork from when she died and left it to me. "I've got a system," I said. "Having everything jammed in one drawer isn't a system, Clayton." That loan officer voice again, patient, condescending. "We should organize by year, by type. I can set up folders, color-coded tabs." "I know where everything is, but I don't." She closed the drawer, locked it, held out the key. "We're married now. These are our documents, our property. I should know where things are, don't you think?" I took the key. Her hand was warm from being inside. Mine was still cold from the barn. "I'll think about it," I said. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Don't think too long. We might need these sooner than you expect." The following Tuesday, the county extension agent called. I was under the kitchen sink, replacing the trap, when Diane answered. "Clayton, it's for you," she said. "Bob Hendricks." I slid out, took the phone. Water dripped from my fingers onto the linoleum. "Clayton, just checking in about your spring plans," Bob said. His voice had that official business tone. "Need to know what you're planning by mid-February. Soil tests, seed orders, that whole dance. You got a minute to talk strategy?" "Sure. Probably oats on the South 40. Rotate the corn to the east field." "Good, good. You'll want to get your orders in soon. February 15th is the hard deadline for subsidy paperwork if you're doing cover crop programs." We talked another 5 minutes. Equipment rental, weather predictions, the usual. When I hung up, Diane was standing by the counter. "February 15th, she said. "For planting decisions. That's only 10 weeks away. About right for spring prep." She poured coffee, watching me over the rim. "What if you weren't farming next spring?" I dried my hands on a towel. "Why wouldn't I be?" "Just asking. Todd mentioned senior living communities. Less maintenance. Less worry. She set down her cup. You've been working this land for 40 years, Clayton. Don't you ever think about slowing down? Through the window, I could see the barn, the oak tree, the fence line stretching toward the road. No, I said. She nodded slowly, picked up her coffee, and left the kitchen. I went back under the sink, tightened the trap, tested for leaks. Later that afternoon, I walked out to the barn to grab my surveyor's wheel for the Saturday property line check I did every month. I kept it hanging on the back wall, next to the old harnesses. It wasn't there. I found it 20 minutes later, down in the basement, leaning against the water heater behind a stack of storage boxes. Christmas Eve. Diane insisted on hosting dinner for family, my daughter Megan driving over from the next county, her teenage son Kyle, and a few church friends. I'd bought a ham, set up the dining room table with Sarah's good plates. The house smelled like cloves and brown sugar glaze. We were just sitting down when headlights swept across the front window. "Who's that?" I asked. Diane was already up, smoothing her dress. "I invited Todd, just for dessert. He's alone for the holidays." The front door opened before I could respond. Todd came in with a bottle of champagne and that developer smile, the kind that shows too many teeth. "Merry Christmas, folks." He shook my hand, gripped it too long, kissed Diane's cheek. "Clayton, thanks for having me." "Didn't know I was," I said. Megan shot me a look from across the table. Kyle stared at his plate. Todd settled into the chair beside Diane, across from me, poured champagne nobody asked for, talked about market trends, property values, the boom in senior housing. "Your land, Clayton, prime location, quarter-mile from the highway, county water access, flat terrain." He gestured with his glass. "I've been helping Diane understand the possibilities, the real value you're sitting on." "I know what I'm sitting on." Sure. But raw land versus developed? You're talking 12, maybe 15 times the per-acre value. That's retirement security." He leaned forward. "I'm not saying sell. I'm saying let's explore options together. As friends." Diane touched his arm, laughed at something he said about zoning boards. They had a rhythm, the two of them, sentences that finished each other. Megan excused herself early, pulled me aside in the kitchen while she got her coat. "Dad," her voice low, "do you know what a life estate is?" "What?" "The way Mom left you the property, life estate. It means—" "I know what it means. I live here till I die. Then it goes to you." "Right. Which means Diane has no claim to it. None. Unless you add her to the deed voluntarily." She zipped her coat. "And from what I'm seeing tonight, I think she knows that. I think Todd knows that." Through the doorway, I could hear Diane laughing. Todd describing architectural plans. "You think I'm being paranoid," I said. "I think you should be careful." Megan squeezed my arm. "Just call me if anything feels wrong. Promise?" I promised. She left. Kyle trailing behind with a sympathy look that made me feel 70 instead of 67. Todd stayed until after 11. When his taillights finally disappeared down the drive, Diane turned to me in the living room. The Christmas tree lights blinked red and green across her face. "We need to talk." "I've been waiting for this." "All right. This property situation, it's not fair." She sat on the edge of the couch, hands folded. "We're married. This is supposed to be our home. But legally, I have nothing. If something happened to you, I'd be homeless. Megan would take care of—" "Megan." She said it like a curse. "Your daughter doesn't like me, Clayton. She'd throw me out the day after your funeral. We both know it." "That's not true." "Isn't it?" She stood, paced to the window. "I gave up my apartment for this, my independence. I'm here, building a life with you, and I have zero security. That's not a partnership. That's me being a tenant in my own marriage." Wind rattled the window frame. The heater kicked on with its usual metallic clank. "What do you want?" I asked. She turned. "I want you to add me to the deed. Equal ownership, 50-50, like an actual marriage." "That changes the life estate. That would—" "I know what it changes. I worked in banking for 23 years. I understand property law." Her voice sharpened. "And I understand that right now, you're telling me I don't matter as much as your first wife, as much as preserving some family legacy that excludes me." "That's not what I'm saying." "Then what are you saying?" She crossed her arms. "Either we make this property ours, equally, or I'm done. I didn't sign up to live in Sarah's shadow forever." The Christmas tree lights blinked, blinked, blinked. I need time to think, I said. You have until New Year's. She walked past me toward the bedroom. After that, I'm packing. I sat there for an hour after she went to bed. Finally called Megan. Dad, it's midnight. She wants on the deed. Silence. Then, don't do it. Not yet. Let me look at the paperwork first. Can you bring it by tomorrow? It's Christmas. I know. Bring it anyway. I hung up, stared at the blinking lights until they blurred. Outside, something metal clanged in the wind. The surveyor's wheel, probably, if it was still in the basement. It wasn't. The day after Christmas, I drove to Virgil Hayes's feed mill. Got there at 5 in the morning, when the first grain trucks started rolling in. Virgil was my late wife's brother, 71, still running the scales himself, pencil behind his ear like it had been for 50 years. He saw my truck and waved me into the office. Coffee percolating on a hot plate. Smell of grain dust and diesel fuel thick in the cold air. Thought you might show up, he said, pouring 2 cups. Heard about Christmas Eve. Small town? Small church. He handed me coffee. Black, strong enough to strip paint. Todd Beckman's got a reputation. Runs his mouth at the diner. Tells everyone what deals he's working. Your place came up 3 times last week. I wrapped my hands around the cup. The heat felt good. Diane wants on the deed. Virgil nodded slowly, sipped his coffee. Outside, a semi backed up to the scale, air brakes hissing. Come on, he said. Help me weigh this load. We walked out into the pre-dawn cold. The truck driver climbed down, handed Virgil the delivery ticket. Corn from 2 counties over, headed for the co-op. Virgil studied the ticket, made notes in his ledger. The truck rolled onto the scale platform, a massive steel rectangle set into concrete. Digital numbers flickered on the display box. 42,600 pounds, Virgil read. He wrote it down, tore off a certified weight ticket, handed it to the driver. You're good. The truck pulled off. Another one lined up behind it. See that scale? Virgil tapped the display box. Been certified by the state every year since 1973. They come out, test it with calibrated weights, make sure it's accurate to within the 2 pounds per thousand. You know why? Because grain's sold by weight. Because you can't cheat an honest scale. He poured the dregs of his coffee into the gravel. But you know what some folks try? They put a thumb on the platform, lean against it, subtle pressure. Most people won't notice 400 pounds on a 40,000-pound load. But it's there, changes the number just enough. The second truck rolled onto the scale. You can't weigh a man's worth on a commercial scale, Virgil said quietly. But you can watch who tries to rig it, who puts their thumb down when they think you're not looking. The number settled, 38,200. Your wife worked in banking, Virgil continued. She knows exactly what a life estate means. She knows she's got no claim unless you give it to her. And now she's putting pressure on you, deadline, ultimatum, threatening to leave. That's a thumb on the scale, Clayton. A crow called from the feed mill roof. The truck pulled off, engine rattling. I don't want to lose another wife, I said. I know. Virgil's voice was gentle. But losing yourself is worse. We weighed 4 more trucks as the sun came up. Virgil showed me the certified weight tickets, official stamped, proof that no thumb had touched the scale. He tucked one into my coat pocket. Keep that, he said. Reminder that some things can't be faked. I stopped at Megan's house on the way back. She had the property documents spread across her kitchen table. Reading glasses on, yellow legal pad covered in notes. Coffee? She asked. Had some at Virgil's. That sludge he makes? You need real coffee. She poured me a cup anyway. Sit down, I sat. Kyle was still asleep upstairs. The house smelled like pine cleaner, and the cinnamon rolls Megan always made the day after Christmas. Okay. She tapped her pen on the legal pad. Life estate. Mom left you the right to live on and use the property until you die. At that point, full ownership transfers to me as the remainder man. Diane, as your current spouse, has no legal claim to the property, none. She can't force a sale, can't claim a portion in a divorce, can't inherit it. It's ironclad. So if I add her to the deed, then you're voluntarily giving her 50% ownership, which she could then force you to sell, or claim in a divorce, or leave to whoever she wants when she dies. Megan looked up. Is that what you want? Through the window, I could see Megan's neighbor hanging Christmas lights on his gutters. Late, but better late than never. I don't know what I want, I said. That's fair. She set down her pen. But here's what I can do. I can file something called a quiet title action. It's a legal filing that clarifies ownership, puts it on public record that the life estate is in effect and that you're the sole legal owner until death. It's defensive. It doesn't change anything, just makes the boundaries crystal clear. Will Diane know? It's public record. Anyone can look it up. Megan studied my face. But yes, she'll probably find out, and she won't like it. I thought about Diane's ultimatum. New Year's Day, less than a week away. Do it, I said. Megan nodded, started gathering papers. I'll file it Monday. Should be processed within 2 weeks. She paused. Dad, I need you to understand something. Mom made me promise to take care of you and protect this place. I'm keeping that promise. But if Diane leaves over this, then she leaves. You sure? I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. Kyle came downstairs in sweatpants and a t-shirt, hair sticking up. Grandpa, you staying for breakfast? Can't. Gotta get back. He hugged me anyway. Smelled like teenager, deodorant and sleep and something vaguely sweet I couldn't identify. I drove home thinking about weight tickets and calibrated scales and the difference between pressure and value. When I pulled into the driveway, there was mail in the box. I grabbed it without thinking, flipped through on the way to the house. A notice from the county planning board addressed to me. Official seal, certified letter. I opened it standing in the driveway, gravel crunching under my boots, diesel smell still on my coat from the feed mill. Request for zoning variance. Beckman Properties, LLC. Proposed development of Mercer Road property, residential multifamily to R2 classification. I read it twice, then checked the filing date, December 4th, 3 weeks before the housewarming party. I walked into the house with the notice in my hand. Diane was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner. The radio played low, some talk station she liked. What's that? She asked, not looking up. I set the paper on the counter beside her cutting board. Planning board notice. Todd's requesting a zoning variance for this property. She glanced at it, went back to chopping. The knife made quick, precise cuts through a carrot. Okay. It's dated December 4th. So that's 3 weeks before the housewarming. Before he showed us those blueprints. I kept my voice level. He filed this before we even invited him. The knife paused, then continued. Clayton, I don't control what Todd files with the county, but you knew about it. I knew he was exploring options. That's not a crime. She swept the carrots into a bowl, started on celery. He's a developer. That's what developers do. They explore. For property he doesn't own. Yet. She set down the knife, finally looked at me. He doesn't own it yet, but he could, if you were smart enough to see the opportunity. The word yet hung in the air like smoke. You've been planning this, I said, both of you. Planning what? Trying to help you see reality? Her voice rose. You're 67 years old, Clayton. You've got high blood pressure. You're out there fixing gates in freezing weather, hauling fence posts, working yourself into an early grave for what? So Megan can inherit it and sell it the day you die anyway? She wouldn't. She's a lawyer in the city. You think she wants to run a farm? Diane wiped her hands on a towel. Todd's offering real money, enough for you to retire comfortably. Buy a nice condo, travel, actually enjoy your last good years, but you're too stubborn to even consider it. Through the window I could see the oak tree Sarah had planted, bare branches black against the gray sky. I'm not selling, I said. Then add me to the deed. Give me some security in this marriage. No, her face hardened. Then we have nothing else to talk about. She walked out. I heard the bedroom door close, lock click. I stood in the kitchen with the sound of the radio and the smell of raw vegetables and something burning. Realized I'd left coffee on the stove, boiled dry, pot scorched black. Pastor Ruth Emmons called 2 days later, asked if I'd be willing to come to a mediation session at the church, just to talk things through. Diane's hurting, Clayton. So are you. Let's see if we can find some common ground. I agreed because I didn't know what else to do. The fellowship hall smelled like church basement, old carpet, burnt coffee, that particular mildew that lives in below-ground spaces. Folding tables set up in a square, fluorescent lights humming overhead. Diane was already there. So were two of her friends from the women's Bible study. Pastor Ruth sat at the head of the table, hands folded. Thank you for coming, Ruth said as I sat down. I know this is difficult. It felt like a trial. I was in the defendant's chair, Diane spoke first, calmly, reasonably, talked about feeling excluded, feeling like a tenant in her own home, feeling disrespected by my refusal to add her to the deed. She mentioned Sarah 3 times, my late wife's ghost, she called it, said she couldn't compete with a memory. Her friends nodded sympathetically. And I'm worried about him, Diane continued, looking at Ruth instead of me. His blood pressure's been up. Doctor said so at his last appointment. All this stress, it's not good for him. Not at his age. At my age, I repeated. You're 67, Clayton. That's not young. She leaned forward. I'm trying to protect you. From yourself, from overwork, from making decisions based on stubbornness instead of wisdom. But you won't let me help. Pastor Ruth turned to me. Clayton, your perspective? I thought about Virgil's scale, about thumbs and pressure and weight that shouldn't be there. She wants the property, I said. That's what this is about. I want security, Diane corrected. I want to be treated like an equal partner. You want 50% of something your first wife left to her daughter, one of Diane's friends said quietly. Maybe that's the real issue here. You can't let go. The fluorescent lights hummed. Someone's phone buzzed in a purse. I think, Pastor Ruth said carefully, there's hurt on both sides, fear on both sides. Diane fears being left with nothing. Clayton fears losing his family's legacy. Both of those fears are valid. So what do we do? Diane asked. Ruth looked at me. Have you considered compromise? A different legal arrangement that gives Diane some protection without fully changing the deed structure? Like what? A codicil to your will. Life insurance with Diane as beneficiary, something that provides for her if the worst happens but preserves the property for Megan. I could see Diane's jaw tighten. That wasn't what she wanted. I'll think about it, I said. That's what you always say, Diane snapped. You'll think about it. You'll consider it. Meanwhile, I'm supposed to just trust that you'll do right by me after you're dead? While your daughter sits there in the next county, waiting for her inheritance? Megan filed a quiet title action yesterday, Diane said. Her friends looked confused. She kept her eyes on me. I got a notification this morning. Your daughter is actively working to lock me out of any claim to this property, and you're going to sit there and tell me she's not the problem? The room went quiet. You knew about that, Ruth asked me. I asked her to file it. Diane stood up. Her chair scraped loud against the linoleum. Then we're done here. She looked at Ruth. I tried. God knows I tried, but I can't stay married to a man who values dirt and a dead woman more than his living wife. She left. Her friends followed after awkward goodbyes. I sat there with Pastor Ruth in the empty basement, fluorescent lights humming, the smell of old coffee and mildew thick in the air. Clayton, Ruth said finally, are you all right? No. She reached across the table, squeezed my hand. I've known you 43 years, married you to Sarah in this very church, so I'm going to tell you something I shouldn't. She lowered her voice. Diane withdrew from Bible study 3 weeks ago, told the women she'd be too busy starting the new year, but Gloria saw her at lunch with Todd twice last week, at the restaurant on Highway 12. She said he was helping her understand property law. Maybe. Ruth let go of my hand. Or maybe some people can't be happy with what they have. They always need more. I drove home in silence. The radio stayed off. My hands shook on the wheel, not from cold, from something else. Something I didn't want to name. When I got home, there was a message on the answering machine. Doctor's office. Reminding me about my blood pressure recheck next week. Diane had volunteered to drive me. I didn't sleep that night. Lay in bed, listening to Diane breathe in the other room. She'd moved to the guest bedroom after the mediation. Around 2 a.m, I gave up, got dressed, went downstairs. The surveyor's wheel should have been in the barn. I'd looked for it twice since Christmas. Finally found it in the basement again, this time behind the old furnace covered in cobwebs. I cleaned it off in the kitchen sink. The wheel still turned smooth. Counter still clicked with each yard measured. Some things you couldn't break, no matter how many times you moved them. At first light, I walked the property line, started at the southwest corner where the old fence met the county road. Frost covered everything, fence posts, wire, the brown winter grass. My breath came out in clouds. The wheel clicked steady as I pushed it along the fence line, recording the count in my field notebook like I'd done every month for 40 years. The work calmed me. Numbers don't lie. Boundaries don't shift because someone wants them to. A property line is a property line. I walked north along the road, then turned east at the corner. The sun was coming up now, winter pale through bare trees. A crow called from somewhere in the cedars. At the northeast corner, I stopped. The survey stake was gone, just a hole in the frozen ground where it should have been. The stake had been there in November. I checked it myself. Steel rod driven 3 feet deep, cap marked with the surveyor's stamp. Someone had pulled it. I stood there for a long time, looking at that empty hole. Then I walked the rest of the perimeter, checking every corner, every marker. The other 3 were intact, just the northeast one missing. The corner closest to the highway, the corner that would matter most for development access. I finished the walk, came back to the barn, put the surveyor's wheel on its hook, the right hook where it belonged, locked the barn door behind me. In the house, mail had come. I sorted through it, standing in the kitchen: electric bill, seed catalog, a letter from the county AG office about soil conservation programs, and one more thing, a brown envelope, official looking. I opened it. Notice of approved burn permit, property at 1847 Mercer Road, valid March 1st through March 15th. I'd applied for that permit 3 years ago, wanted to burn the brush pile that had been growing behind the barn since I cleared the fence line. The county had been backed up, they said. Processing delays. 3 years later, they'd finally approved it. I set the permit on the counter, looked out the window at the brush pile, a mountain of dead wood and cedar branches, dried out and ready. Diane came into the kitchen, poured coffee. She didn't look at me. I walked the property line this morning, I said. Good for you. Northeast corner stake is missing. She sipped her coffee. So? So someone pulled it. Survey stakes don't just disappear. Maybe it rusted out. They're old. Steel doesn't rust out in 40 years. And the hole's fresh. You can see where it was pried up. She set down her cup. Why are you telling me this? Because I think Todd pulled it. Probably when you two were measuring for insurance. Her face went flat. You're paranoid. Am I? I picked up the burn permit. I'm burning the brush pile next month, clearing things out, dead wood that's been sitting too long. We looked at each other across the kitchen. The coffee maker burbled. Outside, a truck passed on the county road. I'm going to my sister's for a few days, she said finally. Need some space to think. All right. Don't call me. I'll call when I'm ready to talk. She left that afternoon. I watched her pack, carry suitcases to her car. She didn't say goodbye, just backed out of the driveway and headed toward the highway. The house felt bigger with her gone, quieter. I made dinner for one, fried eggs, toast, and ate at the kitchen table with the burn permit in front of me. My phone rang around 8. Megan. Hey, Dad, just wanted to give you an update. Quiet title action's been filed. Court date is set for February 20th. It's just a formality. Judge reviews the paperwork, confirms the life estate, stamps it official. You don't even need to be there unless you want to. Okay. You sound tired. Long day. Diane still pushing? She's at her sister's. Needed space. Megan was quiet for a moment. That might be good. Give you both time to cool down. Maybe. Listen, if you need anything, if things get weird or you want me to come stay for a few days, just say the word. I'm fine. You sure? Yeah. We hung up. I washed my plate, turned off the lights, went upstairs. In the bedroom, I opened the closet. Sarah's things were still in boxes on the top shelf, things I'd packed after she died but never had the heart to throw away. Photos, letters, her wedding ring. I pulled down one box. Inside was an old coffee can, rusty around the rim. I opened it. Survey stakes? 6 of them, steel rods with stamped caps. Sarah's grandfather had kept extras and Sarah had kept them after he died. Said you never know when you'll need to remark a corner. I took one out, heavy, solid. The stamp read 1947, Mercer. I put it on the dresser where I'd see it in the morning. Then I got into bed and slept better than I had in weeks. The hardware store owner stopped me in the parking lot 3 days later. I'd gone in for fence staples and work gloves, the kind with leather palms that last more than a season. Clayton, hey. Jerry Willis was 70, ran the store since his father retired. Got a question for you. Todd Beckman was in here last week asking about septic systems. Said he was working on some project out your way. You selling? The wind cut across the parking lot. January wind, the kind that finds every gap in your coat. No, Jerry frowned. That's what I figured. But he was pretty specific. Asked about percolation rates, soil types on your property, even mentioned the northeast corner by name. He's got ideas. I don't share them. Well, he's telling folks you're liquidating, said you wanted to simplify your life. Jerry shifted his bag of rock salt to his other hand. None of my business, but thought you should know what's being said. I thanked him, drove home thinking about words, liquidating, simplifying, developer words for erasing things. At the feed mill the next morning, one of Virgil's regular customers pulled me aside. Earl Pritchard ran a dairy operation south of town. Heard you're sick, he said. That true? What? Rumor going around you got health problems. That's why you're selling the farm. He looked embarrassed. Just wanted to say I'm sorry. If you need help with anything, I'm not sick, and I'm not selling. Oh, he scratched his jaw. Well, somebody's spreading it. Heard it at the diner twice this week. I found Virgil in the office, going over invoices. People think I'm dying, I said. I know. He set down his pencil. Heard it myself. Also heard your wife's been seen with Todd at the restaurant on Highway 12, 4 times in the last 2 weeks. She's at her sister's. Her sister lives in Seville. That's 2 hours south. Virgil pulled a grain scale weight ticket from his desk drawer, the certified kind with the state stamp. Remember what I told you about rigging scales? About putting a thumb where it doesn't belong? I took the ticket, looked at the numbers, the official seal, the calibration date. They're running a play, Virgil continued. Spread rumors you're sick, you're selling, you're making bad decisions, pressure you from every angle until you break. Classic developer tactic. Make the seller desperate enough, they'll take any offer. Todd doesn't have an offer on the table. Yet, Virgil leaned back in his chair. But he will, lowball probably, and he'll make it sound like he's doing you a favor. Through the window, I could see a grain truck backing up to the scale. The driver climbed out, stretched, lit a cigarette. Megan filed the quiet title. I said, Court date's February 20th. Virgil smiled. Smart girl. Sarah would be proud. It won't stop Todd's zoning variance. No, but here's the thing about variance requests. They need owner consent. County won't approve multifamily development without a signed letter from the property owner saying they support the change. He tapped the weight ticket in my hand, which you haven't signed, and can't be forced to sign. I looked at the ticket again, the certified stamp, the proof that the weight was true, untampered. So his variance request is dead? As long as you don't sign. And as long as the quiet title confirms you're the sole owner, Diane can't sign it either. Virgil stood up. Come on, let's weigh this load. We walked out into the cold. The truck driver nodded, handed over his delivery slip. The truck rolled onto the scale. Numbers flickered, then held steady. 39,800 pounds, Virgil read. He wrote it down, tore off the certified ticket, handed it to the driver. Then he turned to me. See that? No thumb on the scale, just the truth. The driver climbed back in his truck, pulled off. So what do? I asked. You call Todd's bluff. Virgil poured dregs of coffee onto the gravel. Tell him you want to discuss his offer. Make him show his hand. He thinks you're desperate. Prove you're not. What if he doesn't have an offer yet? Then he'll scramble to put one together, and desperate people make mistakes. He clapped me on the shoulder. Trust me. I've been watching developers try to steal farms for 50 years. Best defense is making them think you're interested. They get cocky. Overplay. That afternoon I called Todd, left a message. This is Clayton Mercer. I've been thinking about your development ideas. Let's talk. How about we walk the property line together? I can show you the exact boundaries, discuss what's possible. Call me back. He returned the call within an hour. Clayton, great to hear from you. I knew you'd come around. Just want to understand what you're proposing, in detail. Absolutely. When works for you? Next week, Wednesday. Meet me at the house, 9 a.m. Wear walking boots. We'll cover the whole perimeter. Perfect. I'll bring updated plans. We hung up. I sat there with the phone in my hand, looking out at the winter fields, brown and frozen and waiting for spring. Virgil was right. Time to see what Todd was really offering, and what he'd do when he realized the scale wouldn't tip. The night before Todd was supposed to come walk the property, I couldn't sleep, lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle. The furnace kicked on with its usual clank, wind pushed against the windows. Around midnight, I got up, put on my coat and boots, grabbed a flashlight, went out to the barn. The brush pile sat behind it like a monument to procrastination. 3 years of dead cedar branches, broken fence posts, scrub wood from clearing the fence line, dry as bone, ready to burn. I'd gotten the permit approval 2 weeks ago, valid March 1st through 15th, still 6 weeks away, but I had matches in my pocket, and diesel fuel in the barn. I stood there in the cold, with the flashlight beam cutting through darkness, thinking about Sarah, about the 43 years we'd had together, about the way she'd plant things, oak trees, perennials, ideas about legacy, and trust they'd grow after she was gone, about the way Diane had walked into my life 18 months after the funeral, when I was lonely enough to mistake attention for love, about the difference between those two kinds of planting. The wind picked up. Somewhere down the road, a dog barked. I didn't light the brush pile, just stood there until my fingers went numb, then went back inside. Pastor Ruth came by the next morning, unannounced. I was making coffee when I saw her car pull up. "Got a minute?" she asked at the door. I let her in, poured 2 cups. We sat at the kitchen table. "I've been praying about your situation," she said. "About you and Diane. And I need to tell you something that's been weighing on me." "All right. I married you to Sarah in 1981. I watched you two build a life together. I was there when she got sick. I held your hand at her funeral." Ruth wrapped both hands around her coffee cup. "And when you started dating Diane a year and a half later, I was happy for you. Thought you deserved companionship. Thought she seemed kind. But I've known Diane 15 years, since she started coming to our church after her divorce, and I've watched her go through 3 serious relationships in that time. Each one ended the same way, with her upset that the man wouldn't commit to her financially, wouldn't buy a house together, wouldn't merge accounts, wouldn't make her equal partner in assets he'd built before they met. A car passed on the county road. The kitchen was warm, but I felt cold. With Todd, Ruth continued, they were engaged. He broke it off because she kept pushing him to add her to the deed of his rental properties, said she needed security. He said she needed to trust him first. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" "Because people deserve second chances. Because I thought maybe with you, it would be different." She set down her cup. "But Clayton, I need to say this plainly. Sometimes protecting what's holy means letting a marriage end. You're not obligated to sacrifice your family's legacy or your daughter's inheritance to prove you love someone. That's not love. That's extortion dressed up as devotion." Through the window, I could see the oak tree, Sarah's tree, bare branches reaching up. "She's going to leave," I said. "Probably. And people will say I drove her away, that I chose dirt over my wife. Some will." Ruth reached across the table, squeezed my hand. "Others will see the truth, that you chose integrity over manipulation. That's not the same thing as choosing dirt. It's choosing not to be stolen from." She stayed another 20 minutes, prayed with me before she left, a simple prayer about strength and clarity, and trusting that some doors close for good reasons. After she drove away, I went back to the barn, found the old coffee can with Sarah's grandfather's survey stakes, took out the one marked 1947 Mercer, went to the northeast corner. The hole was still there, frozen ground around it like a wound. I used a sledgehammer from the barn, drove the stake 3 feet deep, same as the original. Each strike rang clear in the cold air. When I finished, the marker stood solid, cap stamped with the year my wife's family had first claimed this ground. I stood there looking at it, the county road, beyond. The cedar windbreak, the field stretching south toward the house. 76 years this land had been in Sarah's family. 76 years of planting and harvesting and holding on through droughts and floods and market crashes and everything else the world threw at it. And now someone thought they could draw lines on a blueprint and make it into something else. Something called Mercer Meadows that had nothing to do with anyone named Mercer. I thought about the burn permit in my kitchen drawer, about clearing out dead wood, about making space for what deserves to grow. A robin landed on a fence post, early for robins, but there it was, red chest bright against the gray winter. Spring was coming. That afternoon I called Todd's cell. "Clayton, we still on for tomorrow morning?" "Yeah, about that walk. I want to show you something specific. The northeast corner. There's a survey stake there you should see." "Great, I'll bring my site plans." "Bring good boots. It's muddy back there this time of year." "Will do." I hung up and made 2 more calls. First to Megan. "Dad? The walk with Todd's tomorrow. 9 a.m. Just wanted you to know." "You want me there?" "No, but if I call you after, be ready to talk." "Always." Second call to Virgil. "I'm doing it," I said. "Walking the line with him tomorrow." "Good. Remember, let him talk first. Let him show you the offer. Don't react, just listen. And then you tell him the truth. No anger, no drama, just facts. Virgil's voice was steady. Facts are stronger than emotion, Clayton. Facts about ownership, about life estates, about property lines that haven't moved in 76 years. Let the facts do the work. That night, I slept better. Not great, but better. I dreamed about Sarah planting the oak tree. In the dream, she turned to me and said, "It'll outlive both of us. That's the point." When I woke up, gray dawn was coming through the window. Wednesday morning, the day to walk the boundaries with a man who thought they were negotiable. I got up, made coffee, fried eggs, ate breakfast looking at the burn permit on the counter. March 1st through 15th, 2 weeks to clear out 36 months of accumulated dead wood. Outside, the robin was back on the fence post, still early for robins, but sometimes things arrive before you expect them, before you're ready. Sometimes that's exactly when they need to arrive. Todd arrived at 9 sharp, driving a new Range Rover that looked wrong on the gravel drive. He got out wearing designer jeans, a North Face jacket, and what he probably thought were work boots, leather things that cost $300 and had never seen mud. "Beautiful morning," he said, shaking my hand. "Ready to talk possibilities?" Ready to walk. I had my surveyor's wheel, my field notebook, and the coffee can with the 1947 survey stake in my coat pocket. "We'll start at the southwest corner, follow the whole perimeter. That's about 3 miles. You good for that?" "Absolutely." He pulled a rolled set of plans from his Range Rover. "I brought updated designs. Wait till you see what we can do with this place." We started walking. I pushed the surveyor's wheel along the fence line, the counter clicking each yard. The ground was soft from the January thaw, mud season starting early. Todd's boots squelched with each step. "So here's what I'm thinking," he said as we walked. 47 residential lots, quarter acre each. Clubhouse where the barn is now. Retention pond on the south field. We keep some of the mature trees for character. Very upscale, very tasteful. Uh-huh. I kept pushing the wheel. Click, click, click. Market analysis shows units selling for $350,000 to $400,000 each. That's 16 to 18 million in gross sales. He was getting excited now, hands moving as he talked. Standard development split, you'd walk away with 3 to 4 million after costs. That's retirement money, Clayton. That's legacy money for your daughter. We reached the northwest corner. I stopped, checked the stake. Still solid. "What about the life estate?" I asked. Todd's rhythm faltered. Just for a second. "What about it?" "Diane told you about the life estate structure, right? That the property stays in trust for my daughter?" "Yeah, she mentioned something about that." He waved it off. "But that's easy to work around. We restructure the deal as a long-term lease with option to purchase. You lease me the development rights, I build out the subdivision, and we settle final sale terms when the time comes. You get monthly lease payments now, full buyout later. Everybody wins." The wind picked up. A crow called from the cedar windbreak. "How much for the lease, Fa?" I asked. "I'm thinking $50,000 a year for 3 years. Gives me time to get permits, infrastructure, initial lots sold. Then we do the final sale negotiation." $50,000 a year, $150 total, for development rights to land worth $7 million. I started walking again, east along the north fence line. The wheel clicked steady. Todd kept talking. About architectural renderings, about HOA fees, about the waiting list of buyers ready to move to premium rural communities, about how this was the future, how farmland conversion was inevitable, how I could be part of something bigger than myself. We reached the northeast corner, the furthest point from the house, where I'd driven the new survey stake 2 days ago. "Hold on," I said. I stopped the wheel, walked over to the marker. Todd followed. "See this?" I pointed at the stake. 1947. "This corner's been marked for 76 years. My late wife's grandfather put the original in. I just replaced it." "Okay." Todd looked confused. "What's the significance?" "Someone pulled the old one. A couple weeks ago, right after you and Diane were out here measuring for insurance." His face went carefully blank. "I don't know anything about that." "Don't you?" I pulled the old coffee can from my coat, opened it, showed him the extra stakes. "These are from the same year, same surveyor. Sarah's grandfather kept them in case corners ever needed remarking." "Clayton, I'm not sure what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything." I tapped the stake with my boot. I'm stating facts. Someone tried to muddy the property boundary. Probably figured without a corner marker, the exact line would be in dispute. Make zoning variance discussions easier. Todd's jaw tightened. That's a serious accusation. It's an observation.
무슨?
I started walking again, south along the east fence line. Todd had to hurry to keep up, his expensive boots sliding in the mud. Look, he said, maybe we got off on the wrong foot. The survey stake, that's not important. What's important is the opportunity here, the money. 3 to 4 million, you said? That's right. For land assessed at 7 million. Well, assessed value isn't market value, and I'm taking all the risk. Development costs, permitting, infrastructure, my margins aren't that high. We walked in silence for a while. The wheel clicked. A killdeer called from the field, high and sharp, early for killdeer, like the robin, but spring was pushing in despite the cold. Here's what I don't understand, I said. The county planning board. You filed for a zoning variance December 4th, before the housewarming, before you made any offer. I was being proactive. You need owner consent for a variance like that. Written consent. I stopped walking, turned to face him. You don't have my signature. Never asked for it, so either you thought you'd have it by now, or you thought someone else could give it to you. Todd's face went red. Diane's your wife. She has an interest. Diane has no legal claim to this property. Life estate means I'm the sole owner until I die. Then it passes to my daughter. Diane can't sign for development rights, can't force a sale, can't do anything except what I allow. I pulled a folded paper from my other pocket. Megan's work. Quiet title action. Filed January 3rd. Court dates February 20th. Makes the ownership structure crystal clear and public record. The wind cut across the field. Todd's face had gone from red to pale. Which means your variance request is dead, I continued. Because the one person who can approve it, me, isn't going to. And your lowball lease offer, I'm not taking that either. Clayton, you're making a mistake. No, my voice was calm, steady. The voice of a man who'd spent 40 years measuring property and knew exactly where he stood. You made the mistake. You thought you could rig the scale, put your thumb on it and change the weight, but some things can't be faked. I reached into my coat one more time, pulled out Virgil's certified weight ticket, the one he'd given me weeks ago. See this? Certified accurate by the state, no thumb on the scale, just truth. I held it up. That's what you're dealing with now. Not desperation, not confusion, just facts. Property lines that haven't moved in 76 years, ownership structure that's ironclad, and a man who knows the difference between value and price. Todd stared at me, then at the fields, then at his muddy boots. The zoning variance, he said quietly. Can you at least not oppose it? Stay neutral? No. Clayton, I'll be at that planning board meeting. I'll explain that the request was filed without my knowledge or consent, that the property is not for sale, not for lease, not for development, that anyone representing otherwise is lying. I started walking again, south toward the house. Now we've got about a mile left. You can walk it with me, or you can head back to your truck. He didn't walk it, turned around, headed back across the field. His Range Rover started up 5 minutes later. I heard him spinning wheels in the gravel, then the sound fading down the road. I finished the walk alone. The surveyor's wheel clicked steady, 3 miles exactly, same as it had been every month for 40 years. When I reached the house, Diane's car was in the driveway. She was standing on the porch, suitcase beside her. Her face was hard. Todd just called me, she said. I figured. He said you humiliated him, accused him of pulling survey stakes. I stated facts. He's done trying to help you, done trying to help us. She picked up her suitcase. And so am I. All right. She stared at me. That's it? That's all you have to say? What else is there? You're throwing away our marriage for dirt, Clayton. For a piece of land. No, I said. I'm keeping a promise. To my late wife, to my daughter, to myself. I looked at her. You never wanted the marriage. You wanted the property. There's a difference. She opened her mouth, closed it, carried the suitcase to her car. On the kitchen table, she left her keys and her wedding ring. The door closed softly behind her. I stood there listening to her car start, back out, drive away. The killdeer was still calling in the field. Spring was coming. 3 weeks later, the ground finally thawed enough for spring work. March came in cold but dry, and by the second week I could drive fence posts without hitting frost. Virgil showed up on a Saturday morning, his truck loaded with cedar posts and a post hole digger. Behind him came Megan's car, Kyle in the passenger seat. "Heard you needed help with the south boundary," Virgil said, climbing out. "Didn't ask for help." "Didn't have to." He pulled on work gloves. "Sarah's my sister. This land's my blood, too. Besides, Kyle here needs to learn how to set a proper fence post. City kids don't know anything useful." Kyle grinned, pulled gloves from his back pocket. "Grandpa, where do we start?" We started at the southwest corner. The old fence was still solid, but some posts had rotted at the ground line. 40 years of weather finally catching up. We'd replace a dozen of them, shore up the line. I showed Kyle how to dig the hole. 2 feet deep, straight down, wide enough for the post and gravel drainage. He was 16, strong in that teenage way where you don't know your own strength yet. He attacked the digger like he was mad at the ground. "Easy, Ed," I said. "It's not a race. Just steady." He slowed down, found a rhythm. Virgil and I watched, not helping, letting him learn. "Court date went well," Megan said. She was standing back, arms crossed, watching her son work. Quiet title's official. Judge stamped it, filed it, public record. Nobody can dispute ownership now. "Good. Planning board meetings next week. Todd's variance request is on the agenda." "I'll be there." She nodded. "County clerk said he can withdraw the request if he wants. Avoid the public denial, but so far he hasn't." Kyle got the first hole dug. We dropped in gravel, set the post, tamped earth around it. The post stood straight and solid. He stepped back, sweating despite the cold. "That's one," Virgil said. 11 more to go." We worked through the morning. The sun came out, weak but warming. Mud season was in full swing, ground soft, moisture rising, that particular smell of earth coming back to life. The fields were still brown, but you could see green pushing up in sheltered spots, grass remembering how to grow. Around noon, Pastor Ruth drove up with a cooler. Sandwiches, thermoses of coffee, cookies she'd made. "Thought you might need provisions," she said. We sat on the tailgate of Virgil's truck, eating ham sandwiches and drinking coffee that was still hot. The fence line behind us showed 6 new posts, 6 more to go. "Heard Diane moved back to Seville," Ruth said, living with her parents. "That's what Megan heard. You doing okay?" I looked out at the field, at Kyle and Megan talking by the fence, at Virgil checking the level on a post we'd just set. "Yeah," I said. "I am." Ruth squeezed my shoulder. "Good, because you made the right choice. Hard one, but right." She left after lunch. We worked through the afternoon. By 3 o'clock, all 12 posts were in. New cedar, pressure treated, good for another 40 years at least. Kyle stood back, looking at the fence line. "We did that." "You did most of it," I said. "Will you teach me to walk the property line, with the wheel thing?" "Surveyor's wheel." "Yeah, that." I looked at Megan. She nodded. "Next Saturday," I said, 5 a.m. "We'll walk the whole perimeter. I'll show you every corner, every marker. You need to know where the boundaries are." "Why 5 a.m.? "Because that's when you can hear the land, before the world gets noisy." I handed him a fence staple. "And because your great-great-grandfather used to walk it at dawn. It's what we do." He pocketed the staple like it was treasure. That evening, after everyone left, I walked out to the barn. The brush pile sat behind it, dry and ready. March 7th, the burn permit was valid. I doused it with diesel fuel, lit a match, stepped back. The flames caught fast, roaring up into the twilight. 36 months of dead wood, 3 years of accumulated debris from fence clearing and storm damage. It burned hot and clean, sparks rising into the darkening sky. I stood there watching it burn. Smoke smelled like cedar and pine and something else, maybe just the past, finally being released. The flames reflected off the barn boards, off the oak tree branches, off the windows of the house, Sarah's house, mine now, Megan's someday, but tonight, just mine, and that was enough. The fire burned for 2 hours. When it was down to coals, I took the surveyor's wheel from the barn and walked out to the northeast corner one more time. The stake I'd driven stood solid, the 1947 stamp clear in my flashlight beam. I stood there in the dark, listening, cattle somewhere in the distance, wind in the cedars, a truck on the county road, gearing down for the curve. No killdeer yet. Too early, even for early spring, but they'd come. They always did. Monday morning, I drove to the hardware store. Jerry Willis was at the counter. "Clayton, heard you had help with the fence work Saturday." "Virgil and my grandson." "That's good. That's real good." He rang up my purchase. Oil for the tractor, filter for the air compressor. Also heard Todd Beckman withdrew his variance request. Did it Friday afternoon, right before the deadline. "That's so." "Yep." Saved himself the embarrassment of a public denial. Jerry handed me my change. Word is, he's looking at property 2 counties over now. Somebody else's problem. I drove home thinking about that, about developers moving on when the scale won't tip, about people who mistake everything for a transaction. In the mailbox was a seed catalog and a letter from Diane's lawyer. I opened it standing by the road. Petition for divorce, irreconcilable differences. She wanted nothing from the property. Her lawyer had clearly explained the life estate made that impossible. Just a clean split and her name back. I'd sign it. Give her what she wanted, finally. The only thing I could give her that she'd take. That night, I called Megan. Divorce papers came. You okay? Yeah, it's right. I know, still can't be easy. It's easier than the alternative. I looked out the kitchen window at the oak tree, black against the twilight. I'm signing them tomorrow, sending them back. Good. And Megan, thank you for the quiet title, for the legal work, for showing Kyle how to... I stopped, started again. For keeping your mom's promise. Her voice was soft. She'd be proud of you, Dad. What you did, what you didn't do. After we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table with the divorce papers and a pen. Outside, the first stars were coming out. The March sky still cold but clear. I signed where the lawyer had marked, dated it, put it in the return envelope. In the morning, I'd mail it, start the 90-day waiting period. By June, it would be final. By June, the fields would be green, the fence would be strong, Kyle would know every corner of this land, and I'd still be here. Still walking the property line on Saturday mornings, still measuring what couldn't be bought or sold, still standing on ground that had held 3 generations and would hold more. The surveyor's wheel leaned against the porch post, ready for Saturday. The burn pile was ashes. Spring was coming. Early April. The planning board meeting happened on a Wednesday. I drove to the county building, sat in the back row of the meeting room with a dozen other farmers and landowners. Todd wasn't there. His variance request had been withdrawn, but the agenda still listed it, marked withdrawn by applicant. When they reached that item, the board chairman read the notation into the record, then looked up. Anyone here wish to comment on the withdrawn request? I stood. Clayton Mercer, property owner at 1847 Mercer Road, the subject property. Go ahead, mister. Go ahead, Mercer. Just wanted on record that the variance was requested without my knowledge or consent. The property is not for sale, not for lease, not for development. It's farmland. It'll stay farmland. I sat back down. The chairman nodded. So noted. Thank you. That was it. 30 seconds. But it mattered. Public record now. Anyone who came asking would find that statement in the minutes. Afterward, the county extension agent caught me in the parking lot. Heard you're planting oats on the South 40 this year? That's right. Good crop rotation. Your soil tests came back excellent, by the way. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. I drove home as the sun set. The fields were greening up now. Real green, not just the promise of it. The oak tree had buds. Robins were building a nest in the barn eaves. The killdeer had returned, calling their sharp alarm from the south field. Saturday morning, 5 a.m., Kyle was waiting on the porch when I came out. He had coffee in a thermos and boots that would actually work in mud. Ready? He asked. I got the surveyor's wheel from the barn, showed him how to push it, how to read the counter, how to record the measurements in the field notebook. We started at the southwest corner. The new fence posts we'd set 3 weeks ago were already settling in, solid. The wheel clicked as we walked. Kyle counted quietly, writing numbers every 100 yards like I'd taught him. Dawn came up gray and gold, dew on the grass. The air smelled like turned earth and distant diesel and possibility. At the northeast corner, I showed him the survey stake, told him about his great-great-great-grandfather, driving the first one in 1947, about Sarah's grandfather keeping extras, about markers that hold boundaries nobody can argue with. Why do we walk it every month? Kyle asked. Because if you don't walk your boundaries, someone else will draw them for you. I tapped the stake with my boot. Land remembers. You just have to show up and listen. We finished the walk as the sun broke clear. 3 miles, exactly. Same as it had been for 76 years, same as it would be for 76 more, if we kept walking it. Back at the house, I made breakfast. Eggs, bacon, toast. Kyle ate like teenagers do, fast and grateful. Can we do this every month? He asked. Every month, I said. After he left, I sat on the porch with coffee, watched the fields, listened to the killdeer and the robins and the distant sound of Virgil's grain trucks on the county road. Some men leave money, some leave land. The lucky ones leave both to people who understand the difference. The surveyor's wheel leaned against the porch rail. The morning was warm, Spring had arrived, and I was still here.